Good morning, Manna Church. Jeff Christensen here again, and welcome to part 4 of our look at a life of abiding for Morning Manna. We're diving into John 15 to examine the theme of Jesus as our truest source of life and fruitfulness. So far, we've talked about the metaphor of the vine, the gardener, and the branches. And by the way, if you haven't seen parts 1 through 3 yet, I encourage you to go back and check those out. It's the theme of the new covenant blessing that we find here, and I want to talk to you about today. In part 1, we mentioned that Israel had not lived up to their side of the agreement in the old covenant. As God's chosen people, they hadn't been faithful to God and hadn't been fruitfully growing in their relationship with Him or showing His goodness to the world around them. So in John 15, Jesus is using this imagery of the vine, which represented Israel in the Old Testament, and He's cluing His disciples into the fact that He is inaugurating a new covenant. And this new covenant won't be dependent on sinful people who can mess it up and fail. Rather, it will be dependent on Jesus Himself, the sinless God-man, who is guaranteed to fulfill this new covenant and bring the blessings of that fulfillment to all of God's people, who He represents. And what are these blessings of the new covenant that come to God's people through Jesus, the true vine? Well, we've already talked about fruitfulness. That's one of them, that God will cause us to grow, gain spiritual maturity, and draw other people to Him. But there are other blessings here as well. God will answer the prayers of people, for instance. Verse 7, which we talked about earlier in the week, says that for those in this new covenant with God, if you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask of me whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This means that when you talk to God, He's listening to you. You can be sure of that. And not only is He listening, but He actually wants to respond to your prayers. That's huge. Another blessing of this new covenant is the experience of the love of God. You can know Him. You can be His friend. You can be in His presence and actually encounter His love and feel it. It's there to be experienced. His comfort, His grace, His pleasure, all of that is there to be experienced. Did you know that in the Old Covenant, most of God's chosen people didn't know what it was like to experience God in their personal lives? Did you know that? It's true. There were some exceptions to that in the Old Testament. We can find those, but that wasn't the normal experience. That is a new covenant blessing. Now, we could spend all day expounding on the details here. So for today, it has to be enough to say that God has unbelievable blessing in store for those who are connected to Jesus, the true vine, and are in the new covenant through Him. So be encouraged. If you are in Christ, connected to the true vine, then you are part of that new covenant. And all the blessings of that new covenant are for you. God's love and friendship, His presence in your life, His communication with you and answers to your prayers, growth and love and leading others to experience that as well. It doesn't get any better than that. God is for you. He loves you with a love that moves heaven and earth. He is at work in your life, and you are the recipient of a new covenant with incredible blessings. Good to be with you today, Manna Church. Come back tomorrow for part 5 of our look at a life of abiding, and we'll see you then.